evening to each and every one of you who made time for this very lively dialogue. Whom I have with me is Mr. Lim Hock. He is an amazing man. He is not just a father of three amazing children, he also has three grandchildren. So this is the man who was the inaugural chairman for Center for Fathering and the National Family Council, so two separate organizations. And one of the very famous movements that we know today would be Dads for Life, and it will be going across 26, 27 different countries. He is also, you fathers out there, the reason why he really championed the legislation for paternity leave, and that's why now you get to spend time with your children. And he's actually the first person to win the President's Award for volunteerism. And I'm so honored to have him with us, because why he all this work that he did, right, is all charity. And we were just discussing earlier. Number one, he didn't get paid a single cent for being the chairperson on all the different organizations. And more than that, as he gave, his heart just grew bigger. And I think someone who does something like that is purely because of passion. Someone who walks the talk is someone who really lives his life by example. So, Mr. Lim, I want to thank you for making time to be with us today. I'm sure you have so much to share, and I look forward, and I'm sure the viewers, type in any questions you have, so that, as I see them, I can ask him. Okay, so give me a wave to tell me how you are. Yeah. Okay, so the first question, Mr. Lim, I want to ask is, as a father, what is your initial struggle when you were a young father? Now you're experienced, but when you first started out, what are real struggles you have?
Okay. Well, first of all, good evening from Singapore to everybody out there. And I must say, Junior, I'm very humbled, by your kind introduction. Right. I'm actually speaking to you somewhat with a lot of apprehension for two reasons. One, I believe there are a lot more experienced, better, and qualified fathers and granddads out there who can perhaps do a better job than I to share with you. And the second reason is that in the context of the topic, I'm actually a dinosaur father, and certainly not a modern father in today's digital age. And the reason why I agree to participate in this live sharing is that I believe the timeless ideal values and virtues and beliefs and practice of good fatherhood that actually worked for me in the past are as applicable and relevant today, i.e. the present and into the future. For example, fathers giving unconditional love and spending time with the children, right? The invaluable gifts of time which fathers and children give to one another may take different forms today in a digital age. For example, fathers can spend more time playing computer games with their children, which I don't have the luxury to have during my time with my dad, right? Today, fathers can easily connect with their children through FaceTime, through WhatsApp, through Zoom, not just through audio calls, but also video calls, and for free. All right. And this is I'm going to answer your question. And time should never, I repeat, time should never be an excuse for fathers not to engage and bond with their children, given that there are a lot more resources and choices available today. So another question, Junior, my biggest struggle, all right, as a father, when my children were young, was really finding the time. And even today, at 70, I'm still very occupied with the corporate world And like you say, I'm also still involved with the community work, public service. It's about trying to find the time to bond with children, right? And I think in this regard, it's somewhat related to time. I just have a confession to make, and I hope I can encourage all fathers to think about this. I do have one regret, and that is not being able to find the time to actually open a journal to record the key events and milestones of each of my three children. All right. Uh, on their growth and development. For example, like the hours leading to their birth, their first steps, first words, first success in riding a bicycle, first girl or boyfriend, etc., 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 as a legacy of life story for each one of them. And I think looking back, I wish I could find the time to do this, because I think it would give me and them an enduring and everlasting, profound bonding with me, and to maintain that umbilical cord, even though I'm no longer around. So in answer to your question, it wasn't just time. It was also trying to make sure that when you can find the time, what is it that you can do, you know, that is meaningful, that is valuable, that is very well appreciated by our children.
I love how you share. You sound like a mother. I'm sorry, but normally mothers are the one that chat the first tooth when it comes out, or chats, the kids. But you're so involved. So I want to ask you, like, were you always this involved? Or was, your father an example for you? Or where did you even get the concept that you chose, that you wanted to be involved? Because people like my husband, when we had our first child, he was so uninvolved. When the baby cried in the middle of the night, he will continue snoring. And I'm sure, so what is it? What's your personal conviction?
I consider myself fortunate because I benefited from my dad spending a lot of time with us when we were young. My dad passed away a few years ago at 95. I can tell you that today, my siblings and us still miss him. We still talk about dad not being present when we have dinners together, when we do have celebrations. So that much we love one another, and that much, our dad has built that bond with us. So I benefited from that. I can give you an example. When we were young, I mean, those days that we can remember, my dad used to organize, football for us in the kampong, and he'll be the referee, and he'll be the guy who would, bring us the refreshment. Then, those days, in Rex Theatre, the theatre that is in Seligi Road today, they used their Sunday matinee. My dad would be arranging, for us to go and watch a show early in the morning, and we'll enjoy it. And it's not so much the entertainment, it was spending time together. My interest today in fish, I keep koi's at home, all right, and I've been keeping fish as a hobby since the age of 6. All right, got kindled, by my dad, and we used to go to drains, and rice ponds to just catch them, and rear them and breed them. Now, this sort of activities, help engender the relationship, and I'm quite proud of it, because in my dad's generation, very few fathers behaved the way he did. It was still the old traditional view of fathers being the breadwinner and the disciplinarian, right? My dad was more than a breadwinner and the disciplinarian, right? So I benefited from that. But also through my work at the Center for Fathering, I've also got
Oh,
to
wait,
learn.
let me ask you something, right? What do you think make your father different? You know, man is known as the provider, and so often guys are out there working their butts off for the family. What made him like, just so different and involved?
Well, that's what I said early on. My dad is exceptional, in his generation. I think there's no doubt he loved us. There's no doubt he cared for us. But I think at that time, I like to think that he believed in shared parenthood. You know, he felt that it shouldn't be just left to my mom, to bring us up,
Mhm.
and whatever way he can contribute to bring us up and complimenting my mom in bringing us up. He just discharged his responsibility. So I would say that he is quite an active and responsible dad. And today I always uh, kind of shared it with friends of mine that I do have a quite an exceptional dad. In this generation, there are very few fathers who actually spend time with their children. But my dad was different, right? And I guess even though he did not know the benefits that the children do get from fathers, like there are surveys done in Scandinavian countries, which I found out when I was the chairman of the National Family Council. They found out that children whose fathers spend time and fathers who make a point to spend time with the children, many of these children grew up to be confident, emotionally very stable, and they excel academically. Now, conversely, I also found out, because I also do work as a board of the visiting justice, visiting our prisons, and I meet our teenager inmates. And when I ask them about the family background, invariably a very high percentage, and that percentage as high as 90 plus percent, comes from dysfunctional family, broken homes, where there is what I would call absenteeism fatherhood. The father is there, but he's never there to spend time with the children. So who I am today, why I'm spending time with my children, is very much a result of the influence that I got from my dad, and more importantly, the benefits that I have benefited that I got from my dad.
In fact, I would agree with you. For me, uh, I'm one of those who I am today because of my dad. So I get, and that's for those of you who didn't have a great role model, the benefits far outweigh. Long after my dad passed away, we talked about him. The memories of him were still so vivid, and are stories that I will tell my grandchildren because of the difference that he made in our lives just by being present. And for you, that's out there to know that I get time is one of your scarcest resource. And at the same time, it doesn't have to be quantity. It's the quality. It's like what Mr. Lim said. It's the emotional connection at the point when you spend with your children over a simple meal, over 10 minutes of playtime. That makes the real difference. Yeah.
Yeah, I would also want to add on what you are saying, because I think this is quite important, even uh, an issue and a challenge today. And of course, the fatherhood has improved a lot. Our younger fathers are spending a lot more time, with our children and helping up with their wives. You see, children, all right, the mothers are natural caregivers for the children because mothers carry the baby for 9 months. All right. And you can expect a child to be close to the mother. All right. But fathers are not natural caregivers.
Mm.
All right. Much as a father would like to spend time with the baby when the baby is born and in later years. I think fathers lack the natural instinct to how to connect with their children, and that's why our Center for Fathering was set up. We set up to train and equip fathers with the necessary skills and knowledge to be active, responsible fathers to complement their wives to bring up the children. And I have to tell you, when I was the Center for Fathering chairman, I'm probably one of the more popular men among women because when they heard about the things that I do, they always say, can I send my husband to your Center for Fathering for training, and learn some of the tricks and tools to bond with our children. And I think I've also spoken publicly, and I tell people out there, I'm actually very lucky that I'm not born a woman in Singapore, or for that matter, a woman in any part of the world, because it's actually very difficult to be a woman when you have so many to juggle. One as a wife, as a mother, as a daughter-in-law, as a daughter, and then as a worker and employee or a businesswoman out there. It's tougher than men, and that's why I strongly advocate men to spend time with children to complement their wives, as an integral part of shared parenthood to bring up.
I've got a question there. So I've got a friend who wants to be an involved father, especially when it comes to his kids' studies. But that's where the children and the wife, they are like, no, the wife will be, you don't know how to teach. And then he so wants to tell the wife, don't make them memorize. I want to teach them to understand. So what advice do you have? The father is willing, but there's a clash when it comes to studies.
I would advise the wife or big mother not to monopolize the upbringing of the children. I think this is part of the problem, because sometimes the mothers monopolize it, and because of this natural affinity and biological connection, mothers, because they are more concerned about the welfare, interest, and well-being of the child or the children, always feel that they are a better parent than the husband or the father, right? So I would say, let fathers have the opportunity to demonstrate what the father can do. Yeah, and work together, in the context of what I call shared parenthood, right? I think parenting is not just the responsibility of the mother. Parenting is also a responsibility of the father. And parenting is the primary role we all play when the kids are young, when they are babies, when they can't think so much for themselves, all right? So we do that. But when our children become grown up to be adults, and when they can think for themselves, and most time they can also make decisions for themselves, mothers and fathers would have to transition from just carrying out parenting to being a parent. And there is a significant difference between the two, right? In the first instance of parenting, as you really nurture and care for the child, all right? But when you transition to being a parent, I think the first thing that fathers need to recognize is that they have to start treat their children as peers. As peers. All right.
I love what you say. And before you go on, because I know you're not yet done, I want to tell moms out there, yes, like that's something that even I am learning, because naturally, a mother's love is more sheltering and protective, while a father's love is more adventurous, more carefree and more chill. And studies have shown that kids from 0 to 5 really need the mothers, because the mothers play a significant role in the child's development. But from 6 all the way to 12, the fathers begin to play a very critical and pivotal role, because that's where the child is discovering their identity. They are pushing the boundary. And dads generally do have a wider boundary. So when the child falls, the dad is like, okay, get up, come, let's go. The mom will be like, oh, are you okay? So in this title, we are like how to raise resilient children. I think Mr. Lim, you said it perfectly. It's really to allow the kids to fall and then for them to pick themselves up. And only when the father is involved and sets that example as a model, will the kids then, grow up to be less sheltered and more resilient. Yeah.
Yeah. Something which I want to share with our listeners out there, and it's expanding on what you said, Junior. I think both the father and the mother, you know, will have an influence on the child or the children. It's inevitable. I mean, it's something that a child cannot avoid, right?
Definitely.
Even in absenteeism fathers, with absenteeism fathers, the child misses the father, right? What do I mean by that? Because when a child starts to compare himself or herself with his friends or her friends, and they see that their friends are benefiting, from fathers who are spending time, and they don't have the opportunity. All right. I mean, that indirect influence, that indirect relationship is still there. But I want to share a survey result that we did when I was on the National Family Council. We actually asked children, teenagers, young adults, who are their role models. You would have thought that it would be, a film star, right? You would have thought that it would be, a famous footballer, race car driver, and some even, look up to an artist or a performer, right? But guess what? Over 80% of the respondents, kids, teenagers, young adults, cited their parents as role models. Interesting, right?
Yeah.
And it was an interesting finding for us because as Asians, our children are usually reticent about how they feel about the parents. They don't tell people that my role model is my father, you know, or my role model is my mother, right? But the the gratifying thing, the heartening thing to know is that deep down in their heart, when it comes to who they would like to emulate, it is their parents, either both of them or one of them. And that's good news. And that's good news from my perspective to encourage fathers to spend time with the children and not just leave it entirely the monopoly of the mother, all right, or the wife. I think both can complement together to bring out the best of our children.
I fully agree with you. And like to all the fathers and mothers out there, you are their children's hero and heroine. So it doesn't matter how imperfect we are or how many mistakes we make. The truth is they look up to us. They worship the ground we walk on, and we are that models for them. Yeah. And that's a very privileged and sacred what do you call it, position, or responsibility. Yeah.
And there's absolutely no need for the mother and mother to try to compete for the attention of the children.
Yes.
I think if anything at all, they should be working at augmenting, how they can spend more time, how they can, offer unconditional love, for the children. And and
When we
it doesn't stop when they are grown up. I think today my daughter is 40, my son is 38, and the younger son is
a question, Mr. Lim. We all know the concept of unconditional love, but to the father who is tired, to the mother who is stressed out, in the moment when we know we should be full of love, we lash out. Is there a technique or any tips that you want to share with us of how express that love to your
well,
kids?
yeah. Think of the joy that you'll get by extending that unconditional love. Think of the joy. And if that doesn't work, take a few deep breaths. You know? and kind of walk away, but come back. Come back. Come back. All right. And I think, I don't know, my wife and I think we are quite proud of the fact that we are seldom angry with our children. That doesn't mean that we do not discipline our children, but I think there are hard approaches and soft approaches.
How about studies? Like, do you all push your children to study
Good,
hard?
good question. Good question. You know, if I may kind of give a tip to parents out there and fathers, right? Learn and practice us to us. Learn and practice to us. Don't direct, don't decide, and give the child the opportunity to decide. I mean, for example, when our kids are young, even to today, when our kids are older and they're married, and when we have to go for dinners, we still ask our children, what you like to eat and where you would like to go. So asking is actually very, very important, you know. So I think that's one of the things which fathers do. And in that context, my wife and I are unlike most parents. We don't insist that our children need to take tuition classes. We tell our children, you know, if you need tuition in a specific subject, you tell mom or dad, we arrange for you. All right. My elder son make it to gifted program. He chose not to go for it. It's fine with us, right? When he was in Sec 3, uh, at the end of it, he made it to the top class. And the top class, they have to do 9 subjects, including biology. He decided that, well, I don't want to do biology. I want to drop it. I want to do 8 subjects. Principal called me and say, by the way, are you aware your son decided not to do biology? Therefore, he cannot stay in the top class. He has to move down to the 5th class or 6th class in the school. And I say, okay, it is choice. But of course, I didn't know that when he made that choice, he was already told that he will be the head prefect when he was in Sec 4. So I mean, he was able to make the decision and say, at the end of the day, if I may use a business lingo, he decided he wanted to balance his portfolio. I mean, if I got to be a prefect, I want to do well in my prefect, head prefectorship. I better make sure that I just have the 8 subjects that I need to take, and the 9th subject is totally unnecessary. Right? On the other hand, my younger son.
I love how you balance studies together with holistic character development. Because I think in our days today, we place too much of an emphasis on grades. Yeah. But Mr. Lim, I want to move on to the next question that I have here from a viewer. Can you share some best ways to discipline your children?
Okay. First of all, we don't believe in corporal punishment. I mean, I don't remember ever, raise my hand or use my hand or okay, nah, no. All right. I think we usually explain. We usually explain, you know, to our children why he or she shouldn't be doing certain things, or if a mistakes had been made, we ask them what have they learned, what have they learned, right? And I think the best way for a child to learn is to give them opportunity to make mistakes. We are all human, right? I mean, we do make mistakes, right? Does it mean that when we make it, we get punished all the time? No, right? I mean, I just give another example. I mean, my younger son make it to gifted program, and he came to us, and he really loved. He wanted to do the gifted program. He came to talk to my wife and I and say, "Daddy, mommy, good news. I made it to the gifted program." I say, "Great." You know, but one condition: we support it, but you got to manage it yourself. And I said, first month we'll help you. After that, all the project work, we're not going to do anything. We're not going to bind your project together. Going to put it in a very
I
presentable.
I love what you say because
But
Mr. Lim is so true.
but if you hand the project late, daddy and mommy are not going to bail you out. You got to learn teacher why you are not able to hand the project out on time. I mean, I think the problem with many of us is that we assume our kids don't understand. We always think that we understand better than they are. But I think at their age, I think their learning capabilities are a lot more substantial than all of us. And it's the age where they are like a sponge. They keep absorbing, and this is where, I don't know, for me and my wife, our soft approach has always worked. But soft doesn't mean that we have to resort to corporal punishment. We can be firm, and we are firm, but firm in a hard way, and firm in a reasonable way. And I think it's also a
How
very,
are you firm?
important. Oh yeah, it's also a very important values to pass on to our children. I mean, firm example, deprivation,
Yes.
right? Kids love to play computer games. My children, no more computer games over the weekend. Watching TV, cartoon, right? Only half an hour instead of 1 hour, right? I mean, the child learns. Child learns.
Okay, Mr. Lim, I have quite a few more questions coming in, so I hear you. But another question is, this guy is saying, but how do you motivate your children to study hard? Isn't that important?
Yeah, I guess for my wife and I, we are not we do not insist that my children should you know top the school, top the class. All we pay particular attention and encourage is they put in their best effort. They put in their best effort. All right, and after putting their best effort, if that's the kind of result that they get, I don't think it's right to find fault with the child, right? And that's where your intervention comes in. All right. I mean, for us, it is not insisting that they must go for tuition, right? I mean, I don't have an opportunity where my kids don't do well. All right. I think they excel academically, right? In primary, in secondary, in JC, and university, right? In fact, my two sons top universities in London, right?
Okay,
And
Mr. Lim, I love what you're sharing because what I'm hearing is the growth
this one is very
mindset.
important. This one is very important. You know, so parents must remember it's the kid who is learning, not them. So you have got to make sure that you're not setting uh, unreasonable targets, unreasonable goals for your children. All right. And I would also say, at least my belief, and not because government has been talking about it today. All right. I've always believed that you don't have to have fantastic academic credentials to do well, you know, in the workplace or in society. You don't have to. So parents, be patient, right? Trust your kids, but lend a helping hand. They must see you as somebody who is willing to journey along with them in their educational pursuit, right? And that you will always be there to help them when they need help, be it getting tuition or even you yourself helping them out or encouraging them along, all right? And even if they don't do well, son, not to worry, right? There's another time. Make sure you learn from this lesson.
I like what you say because it encapsulates the growth mindset where the focus is not on the end result but on the process, where the mindset is that there is always everything can be improved as long as we spend time on the effort. Another question is
Can I,
earlier
can
when you said
Sorry,
about letting the child decide on everything, doesn't
sorry.
that make them spoiled brats? A question that popped.
Okay, before that, I want to really share something personal, right? Just
Okay.
expand what I said so that the message gets across. I made it to Raffles Institution from a neighborhood school, and one of three in the history of the school to make it to Raffles Institution. All right, and you know that's a premier school in Singapore. It's not easy to get in, right? And I mean, when I was in primary school, is I'm either first, second, or third in class. My first term results in RI. I have red marks in all the 9 subjects. I can tell you, I was so scared to show my report book to my dad. I was so worried that he's going to scold me and say, "What happened? Why did you, did so bad?" You know what my dad said? I still remember the words, "Son, right? You were a big fish in a small pond when you were in primary school. But now you are a small fish in the ocean among many. All right, never mind. You're fighting with a lot of smart people, but that's what is important for you. Learn how to compete." Right? That has been the philosophy behind, the way my wife and I brought up my 3 children as far as educational pursuits are concerned. Okay, next question. Can you repeat for me?
No, so what I'm hearing you say is push your children, stretch them, but don't break them. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
If you allow your child to decide everything, doesn't that make them spoiled brats?
Well, I don't think that was what I meant. All right. What I meant was we need to give the child the opportunity to make a decision. It's very different, giving the opportunity to make a decision and allowing the child to decide all the time, right? So your role as a father, right? And that's what I meant when I said being a parent, right? Once a child starts to understand, actually would require you, which I strongly recommend, to ask, to listen, and provide advice and let the child make the decision. If the decision is not one which you think is correct, then you have got to apply what I call negotiation technique. The child, is there a better way to do that? Is there another way to do that? What about this? What about that? So there's also a game of patience here. All right. Unfortunately, I think when it comes to wanting a child to succeed, I can tell you unequivocally, and I'm correct, most parents don't have the patience.
I hear you, and I so concur with you because in my book, The Naked Parent, I talk about the 4 kinds of authority, and like what one of those comments is saying, our children are living under very different conditions, and that's why the old style of authority doesn't work anymore. And I talk about 2 new styles of influence where we actually involve the child more instead of dictate to them. Yeah. So I have one more question to you. Any tips to unleash a child's potential and not make them wrong? So, often parents feel like this is the correct way. You should do this. But, this parent is asking what are tips to remind himself not to make the child wrong?
Uh, well, I don't quite understand the question. Maybe can you repeat one more time for me?
Okay. So for him, he has this he wants his child to study. So when he says it's time to study and the child says, I don't want to study again, the father automatically gets reactivated because action equals result. If you don't study, how are you even going to pass, right? So he gets upset with the son, even though in his head he knows, okay, I should encourage him, I should release him into his potential, but his question is any tips.
Yeah. Well, I also have many of these encounter my children, right? I think the first thing that I would recommend and which I found very useful is I think the father, as a father, show understanding. Find out why the child wasn't interested in studying. I mean, he may have a good reason for it. I give an example. My younger kid, was an athlete in school, right? Was an athlete in school, right? And there's supposed to be an exam the next few days, and he didn't even was studying and preparing for it, right? And then I asked him. I said, "Well, son, your exam is next few days. Are you prepared?" He says no. I said that, why aren't you revising? Do you need help in your revisions? Or that I just finished my uh, sprint practice in school and I'm very tired. Right. So a child may have a valid reason, and if he is indisposed to study, I think we shouldn't be forcing it because we have to put ourselves in the child's shoes. If you were him, that tired and exhausted, would you be able to concentrate? The answer is likely to be no. So let the child rest, right? But have him to promise when you are better tomorrow or later in the day, can you show to that you will prepare yourself? Because that will make sure you pass the exam. Passing exam means you can, go to a better class, etc., etc. I think that is what I would recommend, and I use it on my children, every so often when we sometimes come across things which we find that they have to do but they're not doing. Yeah.
I love your advice because that is so true. So, as we wrap up, is there one advice that you want to give all modern fathers today?
Yeah, I would just sum it this way. It's a privilege to be a father, right? It's a privilege to be a father. And I would strongly recommend that fathers uh, make full use of this privilege and take in all the joys, not forgetting even the travels and sometimes doubts which all of us have as fathers. Uh, to me, it is one of the most rewarding, most satisfying and happy moments and experiences to have and to treasure, right? I mean, just like me, I still continue to share stories of how my dad and I spend time. And I think when you can really make full use of this privilege, I'm sure when many of you are like me as grandfathers, you will have a lot of stories to share with your grandchildren. And you continue the legacy. You continue the legacy of good, more active, and more responsible fatherhood in a context of a shared parenthood to really complement our wives, who, in my opinion, have a much more demanding and much more challenging job than any one of us men and fathers.
Yes. And I have one more question. This
My
father
final
is asking,
it's a
should
privilege. So privilege, use it, and take full advantage of it and treasure it. Treasure it. Don't give it up.
thank you for your words of encouragement. And I have one more question. Should the kids go to a girls' school, so an all boys school, or co-ed? Any your thoughts on this?
I have no preference. I think it's all about education. All right. I think many of the concerns, right, are, in my opinion, unfounded and not that valid, and strong enough to either say you should go to all boys school or all girls school or a mixed school. I mean, in reality, we live in a society of boys and girls, men and women. Right? If they mix in schools, they mix in later life, and even if they don't mix in later life, at home they have fathers and mothers, and perhaps even brothers and sisters. So I think this debate about a child should go to all boys or all girls or mixed school, I would advise parents not to spend too much time debating about it. All right. And the most important thing is, will the school give the child the education that he is seeking and for which you can help him make that decision? Remember what I said, and I'm very careful, and for which you can help him make that decision.
I love what you say because I think often we tend to outsource it and wonder, where all girls school or all boys school is better. But if the family is anchored and the values are in place, we are less susceptible to then outside influences. And it, like what you said, it really doesn't matter whether it's a co-ed school, all boys or all girls, because the foundations at home is what really sets the children for success. Yeah.
Well, and one of the things that I've also been championing, is equal rights for women, and making sure that you know women earn their rightful place in society. When I was the president of the Rotary Club in Singapore, one of my Rotary Club, you know, I was the one who pushed for women to join the club, and I can tell you it wasn't easy. Right? I mean, this battle of sexes is, will continue to be around. Yeah, but I guess when more of us learn to be more inclusive and more enlightened, primarily because, I mean, for men we have wives, and for wives they have husbands, right? And if they got children, well, sons and daughters. I mean, you promote equality of sexes at home, and then out in other establishments, you just want to promote an entirely masculine club. I mean, I see a dichotomy there, and I see contradiction there, and I think it's not good for society. And I think there are also wider implications. It's also not good for our children, because I think our children got to learn how to live with one another as boys and girls, men and women.
I so love what you share because it's about shared parenting. Guys, fathers bring something different to the table as mothers, and instead of a competition, it's complementary. And here's where I want to say, Dads for Life has a particular, their signature program is called I Can. So fathers, if you want to be more involved, but you don't know how because you never had a role model in your life, you can just go to the live Facebook, just Google. It's just $50 and it will transform your life in providing you with the tools so that your children will be more connected to you than you were with your dad. Yeah.
Thank you for
So
helping us to publicize the That's for and many of the initiatives we do. I mean, the Center for Fathering has been around for, I think, now 20 plus years. And I think it's an established institution in Singapore, to promote active and responsible fatherhoods. And I know many fathers who have benefited from it, from many of the programs we put in place, especially what I call firstborn fathers. We run a program. I mean, today we still run a program. The center still run a program when a child is born. The father is born, and we organize a program for the first time father to make sure that he's better prepared to care for the newborn, and also to in a way help with the mother who has just given birth, and care for the mother who has given birth. I mean, it has got to be a very, very fulfilling and rewarding thing to do, right?
And I think it's critical. I think it's critical because, women, we take the care ourselves. So while we may not know how to mother, we talk about it openly. But from what I understand about men, you rarely discuss this kind of thing. So, having a chance to just share really helps, yeah?
Yeah. Well, I'm hopeful that will change. I'm hopeful that will change when more of our younger fathers spending time helping the wives to bring up to. I mean, uh, before COVID, before the circuit breaker, when I'm in shopping malls, I see a lot more fathers, carrying babies, feeding babies, changing diapers, and I think that's good, right? I think when more fathers uh, are active and be more responsible in bring up the children, you can also expect what I call small talk to be about how a father brings up his or her brings up his children, and share tips among fathers over a drink or a cup of coffee. Why not? Right? Why not? I see no reason why that discussion cannot take place, and why should it be only a subject privy to mothers? I mean, if
Yes,
fathers, I mean, of course, first of all, the premise has got to be that fathers recognize that they do have a vital role to play as much as the mother, and vice versa. Mothers also recognize that fathers have a role to play and don't monopolize, the upbringing and care of the children.
Wonderful. So with that, I come to a wrap. For those viewers, www.fathers.com.sg is where you would have a whole slew of different parenting father program for yourself. And as we end this very special interview, I want to take this time to say a happy Father's Day to each and every one of you dads out there. I know
Yeah.
you are giving to them, and even if we didn't have the best role model for a father, you can be that difference for your child. You do not have to parent the same way that you were parented. You are better. You are the more improved version to be that hero for your children. With that, thank you so much, Mr. Lim.
Well, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there, and also the grandfathers out there as well. Don't forget them. And Junior, it's been a pleasure, speaking in this live streaming. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, bye, guys. See you on Saturday, where we have Dare to Bear, a different angle at sharing true stories of people who have survived just painful events in their life.
Thank you.
Thank you.